So this is the slightly buffed Xaku, right? But more importantly, this is my 100% damage avoidance Xaku that can just stand there and watch as bullets go someplace else, we don't know where, while also completely removing enemy defenses and killing them with their own spectral guns. So Xaku got a buff recently. I did make a video talking about the changes a few days ago, but now those changes are live, and while there is some good improvements, more are definitely needed. Now I still think they need to relook at the third ability, the one that rotates between the three different abilities. Gaze is possibly the only one that most of us will use. It's definitely the best out of the three. The other two just feel pointless in their current state. The laser is underwhelming even with the damage multiplier that just got added, and the mind control feels just pointless. Now Zata's Whisper, while it is good for weapons with projectiles, it removes the ability to get headshots because the bubble drags your shots to the target's center mass around the waist, not the head. And Grasp of Loke's firing range, not the actual range of grabbing weapons, but the shooting range of those spectral guns, could do with a slight increase. The Vast Untime, however, the ultimate ability, is definitely fine as it is right now. So just a quick recap on what these changes are before I talk about this 100% avoidance setup and show off the build. Xaku's void damage now deals true neutral damage and has had that 50% resistance removed from Grineer and Infested. Now the good thing about Zata's Whisper is that the void damage from it gives that mag bubble. It is good, like I said, with projectile based weapons that work well with mags magnetize, so weapons like the Lanka, like the Exorgist and so on. In fact, I have left a link to a video showcasing Xaku and the Exorgist in action, so check out that video in the description once you're finished watching this one. Now Xaku's Grasp of Loke has a faster casting animation with this buff, can be recast to grab larger groups of weapons, and its disarm range has been nearly doubled, but the shooting range of weapons that you grab could still do with some tweaks. The number of weapons you have with Grasp of Loke will multiply the damage output of Xaku's laser beam from Deny, but like I said earlier, it still doesn't feel as effective as stripping enemies of their defenses. So 4 weapons grabbed with Grasp of Loke and then using Deny will have a 5 times multiplier on its damage. Now the Vast Untime, the ultimate for Xaku, like I said, has had its energy drain removed, and when you cast it now, it will pause the duration on all of Xaku's other active abilities, but not abilities that you have infused onto him from the Helmet Chrysalis system, so abilities from other Warframes won't have their duration paused. Now I think that's possibly the best addition to Xaku right now. Pausing of duration on Xaku's other abilities is a really nice addition. Being able to have an almost infinite uptime on Gaze's defensive strip area and uptime on Grasp of Loke, which scales its damage based on enemy level, definitely makes Xaku a much better Warframe. Gaze stripping enemies and Grasp of Loke killing those vulnerable enemies in seconds is pretty good, especially when you get a nice big group of weapons from enemies. However, like I said, this is my Xaku running with a heavy attack weapon build and giving themselves 100% damage avoidance after every heavy attack with the help of the new Karnas set piece mods. When Xaku has had their ultimate ability active, the Vast Untime, it will give Xaku a maximum of 75% damage avoidance. When you combine this with the Karnas mod set piece bonus, which gives you an extra 30% damage avoidance from heavy attacks and the removal of all status effects for 6 seconds, you have a Warframe that's almost unkillable as long as you keep chaining those heavy attacks, because that buff will refresh itself. It can overlap itself. Now I say almost because splash damage from some enemies, the explosives from some enemies, can tick your health down even with the new change, making explosive kind of area of effect damage deal 75% less damage to Xaku. At higher levels, this still really hurts. Now also, melee enemies can slap you with a shield or a cleaver as well, so you have to be very careful to avoid those. Keep the Vast Untime active as much as you can and keep using heavy melee attacks and you will be almost invincible. Now, Xaku is unkillable with this particular setup and it requires you to focus on heavy melee kills to keep that buff active because of the 3 Karnas mods. Now the 3 Karnas mods, one of them will go on your Warframe, one of them can go on your pistol, and the other one you could put on the Deconstructor weapon for the Helios or Helios Prime to save putting it on your actual melee weapon. but that is entirely up to you. They can be unleveled mods, the Carnus ones, if you want. You really only need the 3-piece set bonus. However, one of those mods on your Warframe is for health and armor, so it is beneficial to level it up. Now, any melee weapon you want to bring for those heavy attacks, whatever melee weapon you have that's your best heavy attack weapon, will work really well with this. Once you've got those 2 separate gaze circles down, which are basically killing fields where enemies will have no defenses whatsoever, completely stripped. I'm using the Reaper Prime in this footage because of how hard it hits and how much slash damage it throws out. But the Redeemer Prime is also a very good weapon to bring for this if you prefer having a ranged option. The Stropha doesn't trigger the set piece bonus of those Carnus mods with a heavy attack for whatever reason, but the Redeemer Prime and the Redeemer certainly do. Remember that Grasp of Loke will scale with your enemy level, and when you can fully strip all of those enemies, it will kill enemies in seconds, but the range isn't exactly the best. The footage that you're watching in this video is all from the Steel Path, and Xaku is managing it with ease. So take from that what you will. Now, in some of the footage, I have subsumed Elemental Ward onto my Xaku to help with health and additional defenses, but that's a personal thing. I was just trying it out. Xata's Whisper would be a better option if you're running with a projectile-based weapon like the Exorgist and you're not really focusing on the Carnus mods. You could put Adaptation into a build as well instead of the Carnus mod to help increase your defenses if you're not running, again, a heavy attack one. But this is a very particular setup that works around constant heavy attacks that I know some people don't really like using constant heavy attacks, but it is my Xaku setup. This is the mods mostly built for range and strength with a little bit of duration. Adaptation could be dropped into the Carnus mod slot if you're not running heavy melee, and duration isn't really much of an issue because the Vast Untime will have over a 30-second duration and will pause all of the duration on all of his other abilities. So the build will simply revolve around keeping the Vast Untime cast to pause everything else, but you could drop some range out for a bit of extra duration if you wanted to. Entirely up to you, you do you. Again, this is the newly reworked Xaku. Hopefully some more buffs will come at a future date. Let me know what you think of Xaku after the changes, and as always, thanks very much for watching.